All right, here we are. It's time for another edition of Look Over Young Cody's Shoulder there. It's called Jonesing for Football. I love that name. And, you know, that name of this is a product of the pandemic, really. I mean, it was a year ago. Young Cody came to me, Bill Jones, CBS 11 and Dallas Cowboys Broadcasting, came to me last spring and said, we need to start doing a podcast. And he really wanted to do a draft podcast because what was the name of that podcast I used to listen to that you did a year ago?
Yeah, Win the Day. That was my old podcast by myself. Yeah, that was
right.
That was classic.
That was when young Cody Winstead went solo. And Win the Day podcast. You can probably find them somewhere. I used to love listening to those.
Did you actually listen to one?
Yeah. Okay, moving on. So young Cody comes to me and says, hey, I've been doing these podcasts and we need to do a podcast next year leading up to the NFL draft. And so here we are. We are jonesing for football like we have been the last year. We got football in the fall. Now we're jonesing for the NFL draft and it's less than a month away. And Cody, what do you make at the top of this NFL draft? All the wheeling and dealing that went on last Friday with the Dolphins moving up, or rather the Dolphins moving out, collecting all those picks, the 49ers moving up to number 3. This could be the first time I can recall that we might have 4 quarterbacks taken in the first 4 picks of the draft. Probably the first time ever. I haven't done the research on it, but you probably have.
Well, we know that there has been 3 quarterbacks taken in the first 3 picks. We looked that one up. What year was that, Bill Jones?
Well, that would be the year of 1999. Oh, what a memorable year for quarterbacks that was. Who went number 1 overall in 1999? That would be young Tim Couch.
Legend.
That's right. He has a bust in, maybe not in Canton, but he Kentucky. Was a bust. No, he does not have a bust in Canton. He was a bust. Okay. Number 2, Donovan McNabb, Philadelphia Eagles. He had a nice career, Donovan McNabb. And are there some who say that he might be Hall of Fame worthy?
I'm not one of those people, but there is a person or two who thinks that.
Okay. Pulling back the curtain here. I'm in Dallas. Young Cody is in Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, young Cody, are there people who think that Donovan McNabb might be Hall of Fame worthy?
Donovan McNabb. I think he's the only one that agrees with that.
Okay. All right. Okay. And who was the number 3 pick?
I knew this one.
1999 draft.
I knew Achilles Smith, number 3, right?
That's right.
There we go.
That's right. And it turns out the quarterback was the Achilles heel of that draft in 1999. As he had so 3 clever. Picks, quarterbacks, which leads us to this one where we know for sure, beyond a shadow of a doubt, there are 3 quarterbacks going in the top 3 picks of this draft because San Francisco, the reason they're trading up to number 3 and giving up that kind of
capital
collateral there could be collateral damage after giving up that kind of capital. If you look at the history of the quarterback selections, where we go into all these drafts and we're thinking, oh, that's a can't miss quarterback. Yeah. Who do you pick? Do you pick? Is it Peyton Manning or is it Ryan Leaf? You got to take Ryan Leaf over Peyton Manning, don't you?
Sure.
Or is it Andrew Luck or RG3? I mean, it was split. Some loved Andrew Luck, some loved RG3. Well, there's some this year who love Trevor Lawrence. There are some who love Zach Wilson. There are some who love Justin Fields. And Trey Lance out of North Dakota State is another one. I mean, we could have 4 quarterbacks. In fact, I would say we probably will have 4
seems
quarterbacks
likely at this point. Yep. It seems
likely
go
in the top 4 picks, unless something gets revealed on one of these guys.
That's right. It seems likely Atlanta has that number 4 pick. Maybe they take a quarterback as Matt Ryan's a replacement there, or they're going to have a ton of offers for some of these teams to move up and take the last of these elite quarterback groups.
And here's my early prediction.
Okay, let's hear it.
These 4 quarterbacks, how many of the 4 are going to be, let's say, not Hall of Famers, but let's just say,
multiple-time Pro Bowlers.
4-time Pro Bowlers.
Yeah.
Okay. How many of these are going to be, because like Andy Dalton is a 2 or 3-time Pro Bowler. Okay. Take nothing away from Andy Dalton. It's in this day and age, it's a little easier to get to the Pro Bowl because of replacements and so forth. Although maybe the Pro Bowl will go away now, like it did this year, and you won't have all the replacements. But anyway, all right. So how many of these 4 do you think, without naming names, okay, off the top, we'll get into the details here in a second. How many of the 4 do you think will be 4-time Pro Bowlers in this league?
I would say 1 or 2.
Okay.
1 or 2 is my guess. I love 1 or 2. I love Trevor and I love Justin Fields.
Okay.
I think both of those guys have a good chance.
Don't show your hand just yet. Okay.
I'm not.
Okay. All right.
I'm not.
All right. And so I would say basically the same. Okay. Let me throw it out this way. With the money at quarterback, how many of these 4 quarterbacks will get a second contract and stay with the team that drafts them? And I'm going back to 2016, where you had Jared Goff and Carson Wentz, and they got second contracts, but they didn't stay with their team. And really, when you look at that draft, the only quarterback in that draft who has gotten a second contract and is now staying for now with his drafted team is Dak Prescott. Yep. So how many of these 4?
I'm going to go with 2. I'm going to stick with 2. Do you agree with that?
So and how do we consider Goff and Wentz? So are they busts?
No. Well, no, not at all. They're still in their mid-20s.
Are they bust with those teams that drafted them?
Well, I mean,
you cannot say that about Goff. Goff got his team to the Super Bowl. That is not a bust.
No, okay? and neither was Wentz. Wentz wasn't.
And the Philly won a Super Bowl, but
That's
it was not with Wentz as the quarterback, although he did factor into getting them there.
Yep, he would have won MVP that season had he not gotten hurt.
That's right. All right, but then fell out of favor, and we have what we have.
And he also provided multiple picks from the trade with the Colts. So no, Wentz is definitely not with the
Right. All right. Let's dive into these guys. All right. You say you love Trevor Lawrence.
Yes.
Number 1 overall. Trevor Lawrence is headed. Who's the coach at Jacksonville now? Let's see.
He has a place in my heart. Urban Meyer, my guy, Ohio born and bred, Ohio State coach, obviously Florida as well, finally makes the jump to the NFL. And what percentage of it is because of Trevor Lawrence?
110%.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think a really high percent of his decision was made based on Trevor Lawrence, but I got him at number 1. Do you agree, Bill Jones? Is he your top?
I'm agreeing. Now, the only person that I have heard, and there are probably others, the only person I have heard who does not have him at number 1 is Chris Sims, right?
I think so.
As far as a name brand analyst at the network level, whatever.
I think so. I think everyone else pretty much realizes.
Although I'm interested to hear what Phil Sims had. Phil Sims, you don't see him at draft time very many places, but I know that they usually have him on Sirius NFL radio. Pat Kerwin usually has him on, and I'm interested to hear what once Phil Sims breaks down these quarterbacks, if he agrees with his son on Zach Wilson being ahead of Trevor Lawrence. All right, let's talk about Trevor Lawrence and why he is what he is, and what concerns you might have about Trevor Lawrence. So one concern, I thought he was going to be a shoo-in to win the Heisman this year. And so what happened as far as Trevor not being the Heisman guy? Now didn't he have COVID and missed a game, and so that factored in.
Yep, no doubt. I like Trevor. I mean, I love Trevor. Let's just break it down. Here he is. I mean, 102 touchdowns, 17 interceptions during his career at Clemson. I mean, that's pretty good. 34-2 record. That's pretty good. Here's what I a couple more things, Bill Jones. He's one of 19 players in Clemson history to be a 3-time all ACC academic player. So the dude is smart. He graduated in 3 years with a marketing degree. We like that, especially considering he's big man on campus. Everyone knew he was going to be the number one pick, basically from midway through his freshman year, and still graduating, still getting good grades. The dude's got it all. Another thing from Pro Football Focus I liked. His worst season graded wise was better than Deshaun. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. His worst season grading from Pro Football Focus was 2018. That was still better than Deshaun Watson's highest graded season at Clemson. And so Trevor, to me, is shoe-in number one pick. Let me give you quickly the few questions I have. Number one is, what kind of offense will they run in Jacksonville? We know Trevor and Urban come from that kind of zone, the spread, the zone read. We know they come from that, not necessarily as run as much in the NFL, but I want to see Darrell Bevel's the OC down there. What kind of offense will they run? Because I think that's important, because when I watch Trevor, a lot of their offense is passes within 5 yards from the line of scrimmage. There's bubble screens and, jet sweeps. There's a lot of checkdowns, and a lot of the plays I saw, he gets it in those dudes' hands and they turn a 2-yard pass into a 50-yard run, especially Travis Etienne. I mean, he had monsters out there, and that's not how it's going to be in the league. So I'm interested to see that offense and him being able to push the ball down the field.
And especially against competition, nothing against the ACC, but it's not the NFL. And when you've got that kind of talent around you, turning a 5-yard screen pass into a 60-yard touchdown, then all of a sudden you've got a 9.9 yards per attempt average. But you're not doing it by throwing the football down the field.
Exactly.
But you're the trickle up effect, where college offenses are now being run by NFL teams. I can see it being effective at the NFL level, but you wonder about, because we haven't seen it necessarily, and you got the talent difference with Clemson receivers against ACC DBs.
Yep.
And those tight windows, can he make those? He can obviously make those throws, but on a consistent basis under duress, those are question marks. How would you rate him? The other thing that puts him over the top as far as a prospect is his size. I mean, listed 6'6", 6'5", 6'6". He's prototype as far as that goes, and with the ability to run.
Yep. He's fast.
So
he's fast and he's mobile.
We've seen him go 80 yards for a touchdown in a college game.
Yep. And the other thing you mentioned, under duress, that's my number 2 question mark, is how will he handle consistent pressure in the NFL? I mean, we saw, I'm an Ohio State guy, and we saw in the playoff this year, they got after him and he looked very average against Ohio State. And Ohio State,
how would you, along those lines, how would you, and I'm not dissing by making this comparison, because Carson Wentz was a guy coming out in the draft. People were talking about him the same way that we're talking about Trevor Lawrence. Now, the offense that he ran at North Dakota State, people said that it was more like an NFL offense. That was one of the things people liked about him. But and you've seen Carson in Philadelphia in the way he has not adapted throughout his career to handling pressure and so forth. Do you think you saw in Trevor Lawrence in that particular game a little bit of Carson Wentz?
I mean, potentially a little. I think Philly has actually done a decent job, and they've had a pretty good O-line for Wentz for most of his career. Now,
but not this year because of the injuries.
Exactly. This year they had injuries, and they had to kind of put pieces together. And Wentz wasn't able to, he didn't have time to throw, and hence, his numbers went down, and they racked up losses, and now he's no longer here in Philly. So. Again, I think from Urban Meyer's standpoint, he knows that protecting Trevor Lawrence, I mean, he basically became the Jaguars coach to get Trevor Lawrence. Now, Urban's smart enough to realize, now I just got to protect this guy. And if I do that, we should be fine.
And he's looking at the Jacksonville depth chart, and their franchise player is a left tackle, Cam Robinson, who is a second-round draft pick. Andrew Norwell, their left guard. Brandon Linder at center was a third-round pick. A.J. Cann, third-round pick at right guard. And their right tackle, Jawan Taylor, a second-round pick. So There you go. And so we'll see, because he's going to Jacksonville, number 1 overall, and we'll see how they protect him down there. All right.
Who's your number 2? This is where I can't wait. All right, let's get interesting. Give me your number 2.
Number 2. Let's hear your number 2 first.
Okay, fine. As I mentioned, I'm an Ohio State guy, but that really doesn't have anything to do with the direction that I'm going. But yes, I'm going with Justin Fields as the number 2 quarterback. I've seen almost every snap he's taken at Ohio State. He was nearly flawless in 2019. Last year in 2020, made a couple horrific decisions. But I think those can be coached out of him. I think he can learn. He's a smart dude. I think he made 99% of the right plays during his time at Ohio State. Now, the 1% were really bad and really ugly. And those are, if you're going to focus on those, I could see why people would want him. He's a mid to lower first round pick if you're going to focus on those. I'm going to focus on the 99% of plays he made correctly. So I think him and Trevor are very tight. I think they are very close. And in my opinion, they are a level above the Zach Wilsons and the Trey Lance, in my opinion. 78 touchdowns, 9 picks for Fields in college. I mean, the dude's a monster. He has a baseball background. You're a baseball guy, Bill Jones.
Well, the other part of that.
There you go.
How many quarterbacks who are successful have a baseball background?
Yep. We know Mahomes. We know Russell Wilson for sure.
Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray.
Yep.
And you go back a generation, and John Elway was a great baseball player, played in the Yankees farm system. That's interesting. And there's actually a couple of quarterbacks here that I don't know that necessarily that the other one I'm about to mention has a baseball background, but the way he throws, it looks like he probably does.
I know you're going there. This is what I think is interesting. The Trevor and Justin Fields comparison. They've been compared their entire lives. Did you know, Bill Jones, they went to high school 20 miles apart there in Georgia, and they played each other in college, each guy getting a win. And so, like I said, to me, those two guys are a level above the other quarterbacks in the draft. But I like Fields at number 2. And I mentioned this in our previous podcast. Whatever team gets Justin Fields, that team will win the draft. And let me just say this. I think it might be the Niners at number 3. I think the Niners at 3 could go with Fields, because you don't give up what they gave up unless you are 100% certain that guy is the man. And to me, Trey Lance has too many question marks. I don't know how you could be certain with Trey Lance.
Yep. Well, I think that the Niners, I'm not sure exactly. I suspect that Justin Fields is the guy that they want. I think that they suspect that, but you don't give up that kind of capital unless you are also feel pretty good about the third quarterback on the list. And one of the things that people are speculating is that the Jets are enamored with Zach Wilson at number 2.
Yep. It seems like that's kind of a done deal now.
Right. And so, but maybe they're bluffing.
Could be.
I mean, but they don't need to bluff, I mean, what are they bluffing for? If we're convinced that Jacksonville's taken Trevor Lawrence number 1, they're in control of the draft now, the Jets are, so they can go ahead and they can be upfront about who they're in love with.
Yep. Unless they're going to use that to maybe go get Deshaun Watson, like they say they fall in love with Zach Wilson. And then maybe the Texans are like, well, maybe we could have him and restart with him and we'll give you Watson. So I think that, that could potentially.
Right. Okay.
Who's number 2 on your list? Who do you think?
Right now. And I have to admit off the top, I got a later start on this. And so we can kind of follow on a regular basis leading up to the draft. Ask me this question, okay?
Yep.
Because it may change before the draft.
Okay.
But right now, I'm agreeing with you that Justin Fields is the number 2 guy. Now, I'm intrigued by Zach Wilson, and what added to the intrigue was what I saw yesterday or on Friday at his pro day, where did you see the one throw that he made at his pro day?
Rolling left, doesn't plant his feet. He's basically almost like in the air, shifts his hips, throws back against the grain, exactly on target. How far downfield was that? It looked 60? Like I didn't add it up, but it was 50 plus yards.
50 plus yards. I mean, and you talk about the baseball analogy. Believe it was maybe Daniel Jeremiah was talking about his hands and his quick hands, and especially in these spread offenses and what quarterbacks are asked to do as far as being able to take that snap from center and quickly get it out. It's like a middle infielder's hands that he has. Very impressive, compact delivery, but the question on Zach Wilson is the BYU schedule last year, or they pieced together a schedule because of the pandemic, and so they played against lesser opponents. He had a very good offensive line in front of him, so he wasn't under duress like a Trevor Lawrence was in those big time games that he played in and in his career. And so that's what you don't know about a guy like Zach Wilson. Yeah, on a pro day where everything's scripted, or against Western Kentucky when everything is basically scripted, he can do whatever. But let's get him But you look at his foot movement in the pocket and so forth, and what they were doing with him at his pro day, and it looks very, very good. I can see where a team can fall in love with him. But right now, I'm with you on Justin Fields, and I'm not as concerned with the bad games that he had in college. He's playing at a very high level against top competition. I look at upside a lot with these guys, and I'm agreeing with you that Lawrence and Fields are my top 2 right now, but I'm intrigued by Wilson.
Yep, I'm with you. So I have Wilson at number 3. I watched multiple games this year. Watched him very closely. He kind of felt like, and you would know this, he felt like a bigger, stronger, like Johnny Manziel. Like he's quick around the pocket. He's juking guys. He's throwing on the run. He's got these quick releases. Now, again, I think he's going to be better than Johnny Manziel. But just like his style of play, he had 43 touchdowns this year, Bill Jones, and 3 picks in 12 games. I mean, that's pretty strong. But if you go back to 2019, he had 14 touchdowns and 9 picks. And then in 2018, he had 14 touchdowns and 3 picks in 9 games. And so this is, we face this kind of every year now. Who was the guy last year that was had really struggled the first 2 years? Oh, Jordan Love. That's who it was, right? Jordan Love had a couple of good years, and then he had an average year. So, like, where do we stand on Zach Wilson, who was kind of just a mediocre quarterback before this year, and then all of a sudden he blows up, and now he might be the number 2 pick in the draft.
The other guy that we had last year who was pretty much a mediocre quarterback and then blew up in his last year,
Joe Burrow.
That would be at the top of the draft.
That's right,
year.
Joe Burrow.
Yeah, and people are still convinced that he's the guy.
Yep. Here's a couple things. Speaking to your competition point, I went back and looked it up. Zach Wilson, 4 games against ranked opponents in his career. 4 passing touchdowns in those 4 games total, 4 interceptions. And their team was 1-3. And those games were Utah. Then they played Utah again, USC, and Washington. So those were the 4 games.
What years were those?
Just those were his entire career against ranked opponents.
And did he have any in 2020?
I don't know. I think so, but I'm not sure. I don't.
Okay.
I didn't write down the
Okay.
the year.
He was the MVP of every bowl game that he played in.
That doesn't do much for me. Does that do much for you?
You're not impressed with being the MVP of the Potato Bowl in 2018?
No,
or
thanks.
the Hawaii Bowl in 2019, or the Boca Raton Bowl in 2020?
No, thanks. Not doing much for me. I will say, good accuracy on downfield passes. I think that's important. He's very good against zone defenses, which I think is important, and getting to his second and third receivers. He grades out well. So I have him at number 3. I'm just a little skeptical about, like I mentioned, 4 games against ranked opponents, 4 touchdown passes, 4 interceptions, and a 1-3 record.
Yeah, I agree with you there. All right. Number four.
Who you taking? Come on, give it to me, Bill Jones.
And I think you may have mentioned it in our first podcast that, all right, San Francisco, we believe that they're in love with Justin Fields. It could be Zach Wilson if he fell there. But could Trey Lance be the guy that they really like out of North Dakota State?
See, a lot of the redone mock drafts after the Niners trade had Lance going at number 3. What do you think?
I need to study. Obviously, I need to study him more. I'm just going off what I see. You talk about a guy who doesn't throw interceptions. Well, in 2019, he had no interceptions, and he had 28 touchdown passes. He set an NCAA Division I record by not throwing an interception in 287 pass attempts that year.
Yep.
And there is a small sample that was basically the only year that he played at North Dakota State. North Dakota State in the fall played 1 game.
Did you watch that game, Bill Jones?
I did not watch that game. No,
I did
not.
Very closely.
He was 15 out of 30 for 149 yards, and he finally threw an interception in his career and 2 touchdown passes. He also ran for 143 yards on 15 carries and 2 touchdowns.
I watched that game very closely. A win over Central Arkansas. To be kind, I'm being kind here. Trey Lance was extremely average. And I'm saying almost every throw was off the mark. Almost every throw was off the mark.
Yeah, but there's those conditions in North Dakota, the snow or the blizzard conditions, right?
To be fair, it was the first game of the year. He's getting used to new receivers. I'll give him that.
Or are they in a dome in North Dakota? Is North Dakota State in a dome?
They played outside, if I'm not mistaken.
This was outside. Well, you watched the game, you would know. And when was this game played?
I don't have let me look up the date. I don't have
bad weather conditions is my question.
I don't have the date.
All right.
But they played Central Arkansas and didn't really blow away Central Arkansas. I'll say that. But again, let's be fair, 17-0 against his career in his career. He was explosive in the run game. I mean, basically what happened was he was so bad in the passing game. Eventually in the second half, he was like, okay, I got to take this game over.
So he was Jalen Hurts?
You can say that. I mean, fine. But he was an elite athlete on the field. And once he started running, I mean, that's when North Dakota State started pulling away. I'm a no on Trey Lance. And here's why. I think I've learned how to project a little bit these guys. Like, I can see a good college quarterback and go like, hey, you know, maybe he turns into a great NFL guy. Mm-hmm. I'm not good enough at seeing a quarterback really struggle and be able to say that guy in the pros is going to be great. I'm not that good at scouting. But from what I saw in that game, and I watched, to be fair, I watched a game from the previous year, or a couple games from the previous year as well. And he was better in those games, but not good at all in the one game this season.
You know what I'm good at? I'm good at not standing on the table to draft a quarterback with the 4th pick in the draft or the 3rd pick or whatever, who's only thrown 318 passes in his college career at North Dakota State, especially in the one game that he's played in the last 2 years, as you mentioned, against Central Arkansas, where he was less than accurate with the football.
Yep. Again, to be fair, I like to be fair, Bill Jones. He's still young.
Yes, he does.
He turned years old when he's drafted. I read that he's likely to become the first player in the NFL who was born in the 2000s. So that's, I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm. He turns 21 on May 9th.
That's right. And so
he would be a guy. He is a guy that a team, Atlanta. Okay. If Atlanta likes him, they've got a veteran in Matt Ryan, who's going to be their starting quarterback this year, likely next year. And so Trey Lance is a guy you might groom. But if you're Atlanta, you have to be convinced with the 4th pick. Any team's got to be convinced with the 4th pick in the draft that this guy has it. Otherwise, because Carolina, why would you, even though Carolina, there's a long leash on Matt Rule, because you got a long contract, whatever, but you're giving up so much capital to move up to number 4, and so it remains to be seen if Trey Lance is going to be that. We started off saying that in likelihood, the likelihood of 4 quarterbacks going in the first 4 picks, I'm not so sure about Trey Lance being in that mix.
Okay. So he's your number 4. Is that correct?
Oh, definitely.
Okay. Here's my number 4.
Uh-oh. Well, okay. Whoa. He's number 4 amongst the 4 we're talking about. Like I say, I haven't done all my research yet on the other quarterbacks. He could slot, and I'll leave it open and check with me podcast to podcast here where I've got him, because he could be sliding.
Okay. So we are doing our rankings a little different. See, Trey Lance is not even in my top 4 if we're ranking the quarterbacks. Okay. I am taking Kyle Trask from Florida as my
because you saw 4. Him against Oklahoma.
I knew you were going to go there, Bill Jones. I was going to say,
what a first quarter he had.
If I say Kyle Trask, you're going to say what? Bowl game against Oklahoma when he looked awful. I mean, he was awful, but you have to give him a little bit of leeway here. He didn't have his top 4 pass catchers in that game.
And he was going up against one of the best defenses in college football, the Oklahoma defense, right?
True. Now he had 3 picks in the first half, correct?
I think the first half of the first quarter he had 3 picks.
Yeah, exactly. So that was his only game all season without a touchdown pass. And he only had 2 games all season with multiple interceptions.
And that's because he was playing against SEC defenses all season. And then he went up against a Big 12 defense. And
okay, I'm not even going to talk about that. All right. So let's focus on the
teasing you, young Cody,
when he actually had his full complement of players, including Kyle Pitts.
Yes.
6 touchdowns total, 8 picks. He led college football in touchdown passes, total touchdowns. And when I watch Trask, this dude's making NFL throws. I mean, we talk about the toughest transition for quarterbacks moving into the NFL is the windows are so much smaller in the pros, right? Kyle Trask is throwing into tight windows. This dude, I was really impressed. His ability to throw over the middle. He's not fast, but he is, he's kind of like a little Cam Newton where they ran him on the goal line. He's a bigger physical dude. So he kind of has that aspect as well. But his deep balls were very nice. And like I said, I was shocked at how consistently he was making tight window throws against good teams, including Alabama. He lit Alabama up in the SEC.
I need to go watch that game.
What was that?
I need to go watch that game.
It was they lost 52-46, but Trask,
I remember that. Yeah, that's right.
He was awesome. And again, I was impressed. He struggled against Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl. You can't say, that's just what it is. Again, that has more to do with the circumstances, I think. I think there were like 6 or 7 guys that opted out for Florida, including his top 4 receivers. So you could tell if you go watch Alabama first, Bill Jones, then go watch the OU game. He was just not confident at all with where the receivers were going to be against OU, and looked like completely different against Alabama. I mean, he was throwing dimes, and you could tell Nick Saban was getting pissed on the sidelines because his defense. I
remember that.
Defense that has NFL caliber players. Kyle Trask was lighting them up.
Oh, I got to go watch Patrick Surtain in that game too.
There you go. That's a good point.
All right. And okay. So as we wrap this thing up, the Cowboys. Okay, I'm here in Dallas. Cowboys obviously have their quarterback in Dak. All right. I need a third day late round quarterback. Have you gone that deep in your quarterbacks to be able to give me a name to look at?
No, I have not. But to be fair, Kyle Trask now, from what I've seen, is being projected in the 3rd or 4th round. So maybe he could be one of those guys.
It would certainly be great for a team like the Cowboys to have a young guy who's coming up. And remember, with Dak, it's a 4-year contract. Here's the other thing on quarterbacks. We don't have time to get deep into it. You look at these, and we were talking off the top about the fact, okay, 4 quarterbacks at the top of this draft. How many are going to be multiple-time Pro Bowlers, whatever? Probably 2 out of the 4.
Yep.
So there is a hit-miss aspect to all of this as far as quarterbacks are concerned. But when you look at the money that successful quarterbacks are making in this league now, and we're talking $40 million range, and it's only going up from here, okay? You go back 50 years ago, and I showed the great quarterbacks of the NFL I was joking about it our last podcast, going back 50 years ago, even 45 years in the Cowboys. They had Roger Staubach and Craig Morton. This is the era before free agency where you had 2 great quarterbacks who, back when the Cowboys first went to the Super Bowl, Craig Morton was their quarterback. Staubach was on the bench, and then Landry couldn't make a decision on which guy is the better quarterback. And finally, he settled on Staubach, and they won 10 straight games and finally won a Super Bowl in '71. My point is, if you can go ahead and stockpile these quarterbacks where you've got a couple and you're always having a young guy there, then you don't put yourself in position where you have to give that money necessarily to one guy. And you've got so much more money left over in your salary cap to put an actual team together. The Cowboys are sitting here strapped trying to put a defense together because they're allotting so much money to the quarterback, to a wide receiver, to an offensive line, 2 offensive linemen, 3 offensive linemen, really, and a running back, And so that's why it's so important to keep it going on the quarterbacks and keep a young guy who you really like in the mix who might wind up being your eventual starter.
Yep. It's going to be hard. It's hard to find these guys. And, I'm going to do some research. That's what I'll work on this week. Maybe that'll be our next podcast is some sleeper picks, and maybe we'll include a quarterback in there. But I think like I said, as far as the Cowboys are concerned, definitely got to go get somebody. Hey, maybe Trask is the guy. Maybe you take your 3rd round or 4th round on him. And then, he kind of actually plays like a Dak Prescott as well.
Yeah.
A physical guy and still making throws.
I mean, they can't go into this season with Garrett Gilbert as their backup. Even when you talk about free agency, they need a guy to replace Andy Dalton. And I have no problem because they've got 10 picks in this draft. I have no problem mid-round taking a guy like Kyle Trask if he's the guy that can be the backup.
Yeah,
so
I think his tape is going to be so good that he'll be moving up.
Right.
It happens like 2 months out, 1 month out. You look at these rankings and guys are ranked 90th, and like, how is this guy a 3rd round pick once you start breaking him down? And then this happened a ton last year. All of a sudden, on draft day, that dude's taken in the late 1st or the 2nd round. And you're like, a month ago, people had him as the 100th pick, and now he's going 45,
yeah. So I'm looking, I want you to find me Dak Prescott in the 4th round.
Okay.
I want Dak Prescott for the Cowboys to draft to back up Dak Prescott with a 4th round pick this year. Okay.
That's what we'll do next week. We'll find some sleeper picks. I know you have a great track record, Bill Jones.
Well, we may need to push that back a couple of weeks for me to really get to find those sleepers. So we'll figure it out.
But I know you've already got a guy or two in mind that we can at least,
Okay, here's what we do on these podcasts. I need one sleeper pick, regardless of position. I need one sleeper pick from you in every one of these shows.
Deal.
Okay.
Well, we'll get that from you as well, right?
Yeah, I'll give you a sleeper pick, and you give me a sleeper pick, and then we'll have a sleeper show coming up before the draft.
I love it.
This is fun. We're going to have however many of these we can have the time to put together leading up to the NFL draft, because you know what? We have the advantage over everybody else out there. We have access to the 2021 Big Green NFL Draft Scouting Notebook, where we find 5-star players right here inside the notebook.
Bill Jones, give me 3 quick guys. Before we go, give me 3 quick guys from your history. Your 3 favorite sleepers of all time.
Oh, that's hard to do. I mean, it's hard to do with sleepers because what's the definition of a sleeper?
Someone who was a late round pick that turned into a stud in the NFL.
This isn't a late round pick. I'll give you. These are, top 100 picks that I thought were 1st round guys, and okay. I'll start with Daniil Hunter, defensive end for the Minnesota Vikings. The debate that year for the Cowboys was Randy Gregory, who is a top 10 talent supposedly, but had the off the field issues, and he slides to the 2nd round. I fell in love with Daniil Hunter. He didn't have the production at LSU, but you just look, and he was only 20 years old. You look at his body; he's a Greek god, and you could see he had that. And so here we are, 3 or 4 years into the league, he's got over 50 sacks, and Randy Gregory's got 1 or 2, and has barely been eligible for 15 games in his career.
Right.
But the rest of the league didn't see it with Daniil Hunter either. He went with a late 3rd round pick that year to the Minnesota Vikings, and he's had a terrific career so far. Hopefully he comes back. He missed all of last year because he had an injury. Hopefully he comes back. But there's one guy that I'll throw out at you. Then there's others that are just.
I know you loved Randall Cobb back in the day.
I did love Randall Cobb. Yeah, yep. but Randall Cobb got drafted, where he needed to, where he should be drafted.
Yeah.
And I do all of this stuff from a Cowboys perspective because that's the team that I have followed forever and also cover on a regular basis right now. And so when I'm studying the draft, I'm looking at guys who fit into the Cowboys, whether it be on offense or defense. And I thought Randall Cobb was a guy. More recently, Juju Smith-Schuster. I thought he was a 1st round guy. And at the time with the Cowboys, Des Bryant was still with the Cowboys, but you could see he was getting to the last legs of his career. And I think you need to be ahead of the curve on that stuff. And so, yeah, maybe you don't have a spot for Juju right now. And so what happened with Juju Smith, what the Cowboys did in it was 2017, and they took Taco Charlton in the first round, Cheeto Awuzie in the second round. Well, I think it was 1 or 2 picks after Cheeto went late in the second round, Juju went to the Steelers. And I know the Cowboys loved Juju. They had him in for a visit that year. I talked with Michael Irvin about him. I thought that he had those Michael Irvin type qualities about him, a real strong hands, tough receiver, go over the middle, whatever, and can be a good locker room guy as well, and an alpha personality. And so those are the types of things that I look for in players. And so those are a couple that I really wish the Cowboys would have drafted.
Yep. All right.
So
let's wrap it up. We'll get back to the sleepers in future drafts.
Yeah, that's good. And I'll come up with some others that I really liked from the past as well when we do those sleepers. I'll give you one of those every week too.
Sounds good.
All right, that does it for Jonesing for Football for this time, and we'll see you next time. And I just love that sign over your shoulder, Cody. There you go. See you next time.